If you are worried about what's for dinner and the cost of groceries these days, then I've got you covered in this video. I'm going to show you what I picked up at Walmart for right around 50 bucks and how I was able to turn that into 5 dinners for my family of 5. So we're talking all together about 25 servings for 50 bucks. It comes out to around $2 per plate, which is not too shabby this day and age, am I right? I shopped via the Walmart app while I was planning this video so I could see the total as I was planning out the meals, and everything here came out to $52.88. My proteins I'm not going to take out of the plastic, so I'm sorry they don't look pretty for the picture, but I have 2 pounds of 85/15 ground turkey. You absolutely can use ground beef if that's your preference. I was just trying to save a few dollars there because ground turkey is a little bit cheaper. And then underneath here I have about 4.5 pounds of bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. I purposely wanted the skin and the bones because it's going to help flavor some of my dishes, but I'm sure that they will work just fine with boneless, skinless, or even with chicken breast. I'm also going to do something with shrimp. I'm actually not a huge fan of shrimp, but my family loves it, so I'm going to make one dish with shrimp. And this little bag of small shrimp for the pasta dish I'm going to make was only $5, I think. Starches, I have a 2-pound bag of long grain rice. If you want to spend an extra couple of bucks, you could upgrade to the basmati. I have a pound of penne and a pound of spaghetti, 1 can of chili beans, 1 can of diced tomatoes with green chilies, brand name Rotel. I decided to go with biscuits this time instead of bread. If I'm in the store, I usually look at the discount bakery rack to see if there's a good deal on bread, but since I was shopping online, I decided I'd go for the biscuits. Plus a bag of tortilla chips. Produce, I have a pound of carrots and a pound of celery, plus, boy, they gave me a really big head of garlic here, and 1 big yellow onion. I have a 2-pound bag of frozen broccoli florets. You could probably trade that out for a different veggie if you prefer it. It's just gonna be a side veggie. And I also picked up this 3-pound bag of Gala apples. We're gonna do something fun with that. Dairy, I have a pint of heavy whipping cream, 2 little containers of light Greek yogurt. I actually meant to get the vanilla, and they gave me the toasted coconut vanilla, but that's okay. You can do this with lots of different kinds of yogurt, what I'm gonna use that for. These little 5-ounce blocks of Parmesan cheese from Frigo are under 3 bucks, so they're really great for the budget meals when I want to use fresh parm, because an 8-ounce block is usually around 6 bucks. Same thing goes for the butter. They sell it in 2 sticks now. If you have butter, you don't need to buy it, but I'm using it in quite a few dishes, so I went ahead and picked up this 2-stick package of butter and an 8-ounce block of mozzarella cheese. What I found interesting about the Snickers bars is that this little 6-pack, which is 3.4 ounces, was $1.18. A regular standard size Snickers bar, which is 1.8 ounces, was $1.32. So you're actually getting, even taking into account the packaging, you're getting a little bit more for a little bit less when you buy this package. Of course, I also noticed that they sell a great value brand of this candy bar. It would also work with Milky Way. You'll see what I'm gonna do with those here in a bit. I took out 5 of my chicken thighs from my package, and I did trim them up just a little bit because they had quite a lot of like fat and skin on them. And then I seasoned them on both sides with just a little bit of oil and then salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. And I have been browning those in a couple tablespoons of butter, about 3 to 4 minutes on each side, and they are ready to come out. They're not done cooking. We're gonna finish them up here in a little bit, but I'm gonna set them on a plate and set them aside while we work on the rest of this chicken and rice dish. I peeled and chopped 3 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, and then about 1/3 of my gigantic onion that they gave me. And I'm gonna saute that all together, this mirepoix, for probably about 4 to 5 minutes or so. Now I'm stirring in 2 cups of rice, and I'm also gonna press in a few cloves of garlic. Then what I'm gonna do is stir in 3.5 cups of water. Oh, I'm also gonna add a little more salt, pepper, and some rosemary. I'm gonna place my browned chicken thighs back into the mixture. I'm gonna put the lid on my oven-safe skillet, and I'm gonna pop it into the oven at 350 and let it bake for about 45 to 50 minutes. If you don't have an oven-safe skillet like mine, a big one, you can absolutely do this in a casserole dish. After you're done sauteing the mirepoix and the rice and the garlic all together, you just move that over to a casserole dish, pour the water in, and then place the chicken breast on top. I would probably cook this covered, like cover it with foil, and check on it every 15-20 minutes, kind of see how it's doing. Every oven cooks differently, and sometimes with these kinds of dishes, I'm not exactly sure on cook times, but I'm gonna check on mine after about 30 minutes, see how it's doing. I'm thinking it's probably gonna take about 45 minutes to 50 minutes total to cook. After 45 minutes, mine was looking done in the oven. So I took the lid off and I turned the broiler on, and I let it sit under the broiler for about 4 minutes or so to kind of crisp up the skin on the chicken. And here it is, all plated up. It definitely makes a pretty generous serving. I have 1 chicken thigh plus lots of rice for each serving for my family of 5. And then I have some apples to go along with it. Really simple. It seems like just simple ingredients, but I'm really delighted with how this turned out. Tonight, I am making shrimp Alfredo, and my family's gonna be so excited. Not only do they like Alfredo, they all really like shrimp. I personally am not a huge fan, so I'll probably just have the Alfredo and let them have the shrimp, but I wanted to do something, you know, a little bit different. If your family's not a big fan of shrimp, you could probably do chicken for this meal. You know, you could throw in some cooked chicken or something like that into the sauce instead of the shrimp, but that's what we're gonna have tonight, and I'll show you how I'm making it. I got a pot of water boiling on the stove and added about 12 ounces of pasta. I didn't cook my whole box of spaghetti. And I thawed out my bag of shrimp, and then I rinsed them and I put them on a plate with a paper towel so that I could get some of the moisture off before I started to saute them. And I sauteed them in a pan with 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of oil for about 1 minute on each side. And then I just put them on a plate and set them aside. I don't need them to cook all the way through because I'm gonna put them back into the sauce and let them cook for a few more minutes at the end. To get my sauce going, I added 2 more tablespoons of butter to my pan, and then I added 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. For me, the more garlic, the better. If I'd had more left, I would have probably used a little bit more. After the garlic had sauteed in the butter for about a minute or so, just until it was starting to get fragrant, I did add about half a cup of the starchy water that I cooked the pasta in. I added in my block of Parmesan cheese grated, and also 1 cup of heavy cream, and I seasoned it with salt and pepper. I have been stirring that over medium-low heat. You want to stay right with it. It doesn't take very long. And as soon as the cheese is melty and it starts to bubble, I'm going to add my shrimp back into the pan and let the shrimp cook for a minute or 2 in the sauce on their own to finish cooking. And then I will add my spaghetti in, give it all a toss, and it will be ready to serve. And we're going to have this with some steamed broccoli on the side. And it's really simple, comes together pretty quickly. You do have to kind of stay right here with it while it cooks, but we are really looking forward to trying this out. I have a fun new sponsor today, nuts.com, and I have a fun new spokesperson to help me unbox this. He has been waiting so patiently for me to open this box up. We've had it for a few weeks. He's a huge fan of these kind of snacks, so he's gonna help me open it up and kind of try out some of the things that we got. As the name suggests, nuts.com does offer a variety of freshly roasted nuts, but they are so much more than that. They also have a variety of dried fruits, sweets, pantry staples, and so much more. Plus, they are a 3rd-generation family-owned company, and they've been doing this for almost 100 years. They started way back in 1929. So you know they've got a good product because they wouldn't be in business that long otherwise. Okay, I just tried the bourbon pecans. Those are so good. Do you guys say pecans? Or pecans, or pecans. I say pecans. The rest of my family says pecans. I don't know. But these, 10 out of 10. Now is a really fantastic time to order, because when you visit the link in the description box below, or you go to nuts.com/Mindy, every new customer is going to get a free gift with their order, plus free shipping on orders of $29 or more. And these would make fantastic gifts or just fantastic snacking for all of the holiday gatherings that we're going to be a part of over the next few weeks, right? They also roast their nuts and pop their corn the same day that it ships. The same day. So you are getting the absolute freshest it can be, satisfaction guaranteed. Again, visit that link in the description box or go to nuts.com/Mindy. Peruse what they have to offer, place your order, and then enjoy the delicious snacks. You're gonna get free shipping on orders of $29 or more, plus a free gift for every new customer. And thank you again to nuts.com for sponsoring today's video. Tonight, I am whipping up a tried and true family favorite. This is probably my favorite hamburger helper dupe out there. It is the cheesy ground beef pasta skillet from Midnight Baker. I'll leave a link to the description box below. I make some adjustments to the recipe to make it possible to cook it all in one skillet and also to stretch the recipe a little bit further. So let me show you what I'm doing. My ground turkey is about done browning, and the original recipe obviously calls for ground beef. It's in the name, right? I'm using ground turkey because it's a little bit less expensive, and in a dish like this, it's not going to make as much of a flavor difference, at least for me, especially since we're adding Worcestershire in a little bit. And adding Worcestershire to ground turkey is actually a trick that one of the viewers gave me years ago for making ground turkey taste a little bit more beefy, if that's your preference. I'm going to add a tablespoon of butter in here. And that onion was so large that I only needed about 1/3 of it. I chopped up about 1/3 of that onion that was in my haul. I'm going to saute this all together until the onions begin to get translucent. I am pressing several cloves of garlic. I'm probably using about 4 or 5 cloves. We really like garlic. And I love fresh garlic, but what I don't love about it is that my fingers and my hands smell like garlic sometimes for several days from peeling it. And I know all the tricks for like smashing it and peeling it, but for some reason, this one was really hard to peel. I can tell that I'm gonna have the garlic aroma in my skin for a little while. Now I'm adding a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Actually, I'm probably gonna add about 1.5 tablespoons since I'm using more pasta than the original recipe calls for. Just give it a little more flavor. A pinch of red pepper flake. You can leave this out if you don't like the kick. 3 cups of water. And I'm gonna add 2 beef bouillon cubes because I happen to have them. If you don't have bouillon or you don't have beef broth, that's okay. I would just add about 1 teaspoon of salt, or just salt and pepper it to your taste. I'm gonna add about 1/2 cup more water, and maybe 1/3 of a cup. Just doesn't look like quite enough. Now I am adding 12 ounces, which is about 3/4 of this 1 pound bag. If you want to use the whole 1 pound bag, just add another cup of water or broth to your pan here, because my rule is about 8 ounces of water for every 4 ounces of pasta for a 1 pan dish. As soon as I stir this in, I'm going to bring it up to a simmer. I'm gonna cover it and turn it down to low and let it simmer for about 12 to 15 minutes, and then just turn the heat off, but leave the lid on for another 5 minutes or so before we finish it up. I know it's not much to look at yet. That's because we haven't stirred in the cheese yet. I grated up my 8-ounce block of mozzarella, and I'm gonna stir all of that in right now. You can use a different kind of cheese. The original recipe calls for mozzarella, and I think it's pretty good, so I stick with that. When I plan these kinds of videos, when I put together these types of meal plans, I almost always try to include some kind of sweet treat or something along those lines. And with this video, I knew I was just a little bit short on produce, so I decided to combine sort of the sweet treat idea with a fruit. And that's why I picked up the bag of apples. So we have plenty of apples to have, you know, just regular old apples with one of our meals, but I'm also gonna make an apple salad, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm actually chopping up some apples, and when I'm done chopping them up, I have 5 apples here from my 3-pound bag that I purchased. When I'm done chopping them up, I'm gonna toss them with the 2 containers of yogurt. And then I'm gonna chop up the Snickers bars that I purchased and sprinkle those over the top. And this could go along with a meal. This could be served after a meal. If I'm being honest, my kids are probably gonna gobble this up when they get home from school because they love this kind of thing. But it's just another option, you know, for you on a really tight budget, just to have something that's, you know, a little bit different, a little sweet treat. And then of course there's plenty of apples left over from that bag, you know, to use with other meals throughout the week. Kid is done with school and immediately said, "Mom, I'll eat that when you're done." What do you think? Pretty tasty for a fruit salad, yes?
Yeah.
I messed up, you guys. The last recipe I want to share with you is something that my mom used to make a lot when I was growing up. If you're new here, I've shared several times that I grew up in a big family. I'm the 4th of 5 children. So cooking for 7 people, my mom often made really inexpensive casseroles and things for dinner. The one I want to share with you is something that she called Ranch House Surprise. I'm going to make my version of that, but it's a whole lot better if you have cheddar cheese, and I forgot to buy a block of cheddar. So you can add that this would make it more like $11 dinners for this video. Or you can buy just like a bigger block of mozzarella, or you can use all cheddar in the dishes that I'm using. I'm just saying that I forgot that this recipe calls for cheddar cheese. You can leave it out. It doesn't have to have it. I just think it makes it better. You'll see what I mean. I'm browning up one of my 1 pound packages of ground turkey, and I also threw in, just a couple tablespoons really of onion, and I'm browning that along with the meat. I'm gonna use the Worcestershire trick to kind of give it more of a beefy flavor, about a tablespoon or so. Now I have some garlic that I'm pressing, probably about 3 cloves. You could use more or less. And if there's anything we're taking away from this video, it's probably gonna be the power of onions and garlic to add flavor to your dishes. 1.5 cups of rice. My can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. My can of chili beans. Plus 2.5 cups of water. I'm going to add a little bit of homemade taco seasoning. This is just a combination of chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, cumin. What else? Oh, paprika, a little bit of salt. You could just season this however you want it. You could use a combination of those seasonings, or you can go simple and use salt and pepper. I'm gonna stir this all together. I'm gonna bring it to a simmer, cover it, reduce the heat to low. I'm gonna let it simmer for about 10 minutes and turn the heat off and let it sit with the lid on for another 5 minutes. That's typically the way that I cook rice on the stove. Now at this point you can, if you want to, just stir in some shredded cheese and then it's ready to eat. We usually eat this with chips, and we use the chips just to scoop the casserole and eat it that way. You can put it in tortillas, it stands on its own. You can put different vegetables with it, what have you. How my mom would make this though is she would turn it into a casserole. She'd pour everything into a casserole dish, sprinkle cheese over the top, and then bake it in the oven until it's warmed through. This allowed her to kind of make it, you know, earlier in the day, or even make it a day ahead of time, pop it in the fridge, and then cook it the next day. And that's the tack I'm taking today, because I'm going to turn it into a freezer meal. I'm pouring it into like a freezer casserole pan, and I'm going to freeze it as is without the cheese on top. And then when we're ready to eat it in a few weeks, I can pull it out of the freezer. I can let it thaw for a few hours, or I can pop it into a preheating oven. I'll sprinkle the cheese on towards the end of the cook cycle in the oven, and then we'll have it to eat later on this month. But it's an oldie but a goodie, and just kind of a tried and true feeds a crowd family recipe. Tonight I am making a creamy chicken and rice soup, and I had intended to do this using the slow cooker, but something came up today and I'm getting a late start on this dinner, so I'm gonna make it all on the stove instead. I'm gonna get the broth for the soup simmering on the stove. So I have 3 of my chicken thighs, and I didn't bother taking the bones out or the skin off. I'm gonna let all that simmer together. We'll take it off later when we shred up the cooked chicken. I have my onion, the rest of my giant onion in here, and about 5 garlic cloves. I didn't bother chopping that stuff up because, again, I'm gonna take all that out before we finish up the soup with the other ingredients. So it's fine for it just to simmer all together. It'll be easier for me to get out later. I'm gonna season this with salt. I'm gonna be pretty generous with it, maybe about 2 teaspoons. Pepper, of course. And I'm gonna use a little bit of Italian seasoning and maybe a bay leaf. If you don't have those things, it's okay. Salt and pepper go a long way, as I say. My bay leaves are more like bay crumbs. It's kind of hard to fish some out that are whole here. There we go. I'm also adding the rind from the Parmesan wedge that I bought. When I buy fresh parm, I save the ends of it, usually in the freezer in a little baggie, and I'll throw them into stuff like this because it adds so much flavor. 6 cups of water, and I'm gonna bring this to a boil, reduce the heat, cover it, let it simmer for about an hour until that chicken is done cooking. When my broth was finished, when it had simmered for about an hour, I removed the chicken, and I'm gonna use a couple of forks to shred that up, take the bone and the skin off, and I'll set that aside for a little bit. I also used a slotted spoon to take out the onion and the garlic and the bay leaves. I brought my broth back up to a boil, and I am putting in 3 carrots that I peeled and chopped, plus 2 stalks of celery, and 1 cup of rice. I'm gonna bring that to a boil, and I'm gonna let it simmer for about 15 minutes or so until the rice is cooked, and then we'll be ready to finish this up. Okay, my rice is done, and the carrots and celery are tender, and a lot of the broth has been soaked up by the rice. So now I'm going to stir back in my chicken, my shredded chicken thighs, and 1 cup of heavy cream, which is about half of my 16-ounce container, which is half of my 16-ounce container. All I need to do is just bring this up to temperature, just have it on low, so just let everything heat through together, and then it will be ready to serve. I popped my biscuits into the oven, and we're just gonna have this with biscuits tonight. Really easy, simple dinner, but it's really satisfying, especially on a cold winter night. If you are looking for more cheap meal ideas for your family, be sure to check out the playlist in the description box below, because I have made dozens of budget meal videos over the past few years. Plus, I have a lot more coming out in 2024, so make sure that you're subscribed. Pick out one of these videos to watch next, and I'll see you there.